Hi, I'm Chris Colvin. I'm the founder of In the House. We're a community for general counsel and other in-house lawyers who want to meet and connect with their peers and share best practices. One of the things we do at In the House is is called house calls, and we just have very brief conversations with thought leaders around the general counsel community about what they're seeing and some of the solutions that they see to common problems facing corporate legal departments today. So I'm delighted to be here with Richard Magnan, who is a general counsel and also a chief information security officer, and also David Heckler, who's the editor-in-chief of the TAG Cyber Law Journal. So I'll just pass the mic to David, who will just ask Richard a couple of questions about these issues.
Thanks, Richard, for joining the Cybersecurity Privacy Working Group. You have an unusual dual role, and it goes back to your earlier career when you started as got a bachelor degree in mathematics and computer science, and then you joined the Air Force. And you actually worked as an applications programmer and then got sent to get a master's in that field. And you got interested in patent law because you were wondering about what happens with patents, what happens with software, and what protections are available. And then you started thinking, maybe I should go to law school. And for some reason, the Air Force said, great idea. It would be good to have someone steeped in both careers. And you went to Georgetown Law Center and you got a law degree. And then you were wondering what's going to happen. You were living in Europe and you went back and forth between the two until you ended up at a company called Rising Tide, where you work now. You started as an in-house lawyer, became their general counsel, and now you're also the chief information security officer. So, unusual situation. When you began law school, you only had this background in tech, and it was a real departure. Were there problems that you had to navigate through to feel comfortable with the law?
Yes, David, there was a transition because as a mathematician, I was always looking for the single right answer to any problem. And I brought that to law school. And so when I'm doing legal research, I kept researching and researching, hoping to find the exact same fact pattern in the right law. And I realized that in math, there's always one right answer, maybe different ways to calculate it, but one right answer. And in law, sometimes there's one, sometimes there's multiple right answers, sometimes there's no right answer. So what I learned is I have to get to a certain point and realize that I'm not going to find the answer. And I simply have to take what I have and do the best that I can with it. But the analytical part is very similar. You have to identify the issue and then do the research to find a solution if one exists.
Now, we've all often heard people complain about the way communication sometimes gets muddled between the tech side and the legal side. But you have deeper concerns about the collaboration between those two groups. Tell us about those concerns.
Yeah, as the general counsel, I attend seminars and meetings with my general counsel colleagues, and as the CIO and CISO, I attend meetings with the IT colleagues, and I've often asked my IT colleagues, are you getting the support you need from the legal department when it comes to cybersecurity? And the answer I get is often no. In fact, mostly no. Either the legal department's not providing an answer, or if they're concerned about the issue, they take such a conservative approach to cybersecurity that you have to lock up the data and you can't use it. But when I talk to my legal colleagues, they say, yes, we are supporting the IT department. And so it's this difference of opinion where legal thinks that they are, and probably is doing the best they can, but they're not providing what IT is looking for. And this is the gap that most concerns me, because I think they're both best efforts on both parts, but there remains a gap.
So what's at the heart of that gap? What's the impediment?
I think that the impediment is that in order to talk about computers, you have to at least understand a little bit about what you're doing, and particularly data privacy, cybersecurity. It's really data management. you have some information that you need to protect. And in the old days, it was on a piece of paper, you locked it up in a file cabinet or a safe, and legal could check to see if it's being locked up properly. Well, now it's sort of locked up in software somewhere, and unless legal really asks the right questions of IT, you won't know whether it's properly locked up, whether the right access controls or the right management is being done by the software. And it's not something you can just rely on the IT department to do, because that's not their expertise. They'll find some software, they'll put it out there, they'll configure it, but to make sure that it meets the specific requirements of GDPR or the CCPA, that requires a lawyer to at least look at how the data is handled and managed inside the machine.
Is there a solution that makes sense to you? Something that can solve the problem kind of quickly? Because we're in a...
Well, there is, and this is why I teach. I'm trying to teach lawyers enough technology so that they can understand at least data flow, data storage inside the architecture of a computer, inside the computer, and so they can ask the right questions of the IT department. I don't expect the IT department to learn the law. It's an unusual transition, and so the burden is on, I think, on legal to learn enough about technology to ask the right questions, and then to take the answers along with the CISO to management and do a normal business risk assessment like any other business risk. It's just that this type of translation, I call it, between the legal issue or the technical issue is better done, I think, by lawyers, because we do that all the time for complex legal issues, bringing that to business. And so they need to understand enough technology to bring this complex cybersecurity risk to business.
And how are your students doing?
Well, the students come in general with a lot of enthusiasm, and they maintain it through the course. But in terms of being able, in a short period of time, to understand the internals of the machine, I've been surprised that it's harder than I expected. And particularly, I teach at the LLM level, and I teach at the lower graduate level course, and they can use any device you put in front of them. They can use a computer, a laptop, a tablet, anything. But using and understanding even simple data flow are totally different. And I'm surprised that it's so difficult to understand how data flows inside of a computer, even the issue of the binary representation of characters, that it's all numbers. And so surprisingly, they're not, for the most part, in a class of about 15 or so, maybe 3, will really understand what I've hoped to teach them, and the others much less. And I'm not trying to teach them to be a programmer. I'm just trying to understand basic computer architecture and data flow.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for appearing on this edition of House Calls. Sounds like we're making progress, but we have miles to go before we sleep on this issue. So, and I appreciate especially your comment that the burden's really on the lawyers to get more tech savvy and to translate this issue into terms that their IT colleagues can understand. So thank you, Richard Magnan. Thank you, David Heckler, for appearing on House Calls today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris.